CTE in your name stands for commitment to excellence.
Yeah, I wish, we created this before the NFL started.
Yeah.
Coming up on Behind the Craft.
I want to do the best extension for our clients, and we also were adamant that we were going to take amazing care of our team because we come from environments where you're like, that's not always corporate America's number one priority.
And we've just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and by humans asking the questions, building relationships with the people we deal with are really what ultimately sets you apart, and we firmly believe that.
Welcome to Behind the Craft. We haven't recorded an episode in a while, but we are back today and we're going to do something new. In the past, we've talked a lot about our team members at Brandcraft and about the creative work that goes into all the work behind the scenes serving our many clients. But today we are going to talk to a longtime client, one of my favorites actually, and take a look behind their craft. So joining me remotely are Todd and Kimm Lytle of CTE Logistics. Guys, first off, thank you so much for taking time today and welcome to the show. I really appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about how you guys do what you do. So yeah, for starters, I think, why don't you give everybody listening just a quick overview on CTE Logistics, like what you guys do and who you serve.
I'm Todd Lytle. I'm the president of CTE Logistics, and I'm here with my wife, Kimm. And
you've got a fun title. You've got a fun title.
I'm Kimm Lytle, and I'm the VP of Culture and Branding with CTE Logistics.
So tell me a little bit, who is CTE Logistics and what is it that you guys do?
We're a freight management partner, kind of handling all aspects of the domestic supply chain, except for air freight. We handle everything from local drayage into our facilities and pick, pack, storage, and then domestic transportation throughout the United States and Canada.
Nice. So what was your background before you started CTE? Like what motivated you to start it and why at that time specifically?
That's a great question. So we were both corporates, working in the corporate world. Todd was in the industry and he can speak more to that. And I was working in sales for financial services, payroll services, banking. And we both were let off during the great financial crisis in 2008. So it's kind of around there, 2007, 2008. I had always had on my heart to start a business one day. I went to school to start a business. My plan was to start a floral shop. So I had gone to school specifically for that and had my training in that and ended up in the corporate sales world. And so when Todd came behind me about a year later and got laid off, we just said, let's just do it. Let's just put it into ourselves and see what we can do. And definitely Todd's background led us to this industry.
Yeah, similarly to Kimm, I never worked out of the industry. So that was my whole experience through high school, through everything. And I kind of realized that I was pretty good in it and been able to move upwards. And at one point I wound up going into sales, realizing that again, I had some expertise because of my previous background on the operational side. It just kind of kept moving up the ladder there. And so it kind of seemed like when 2008 happened and opportunities came that there was a place for us between both of our strengths.
Yeah. That's crazy. What a time to start a business. I was really interested. I mean, it seems like the wrong time, but it seems to have worked out for you guys, right? I mean,
well, I'll tell you, kind of at that point in time, I think it was interesting that also because, we were also probably at the point of corporate burnout. We had two little kids. We had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. Sort of when Todd got his ultimatum from his company, they were changing and shifting during that time, as many companies were. And I don't know, I think there was this kind of sense of like, you know what, I think we can do this better anyway. It's like we're starting from scratch. We've got nothing to lose. And if we lose everything, we'll just get in line with everybody else. So we just
True.
kind of like jumped in with 2 feet, maxed out our credit cards, flushed out our 401ks, and we just went for it. We had no idea what we were doing. And we did have an idea what we were doing, but,
Sure.
we didn't know where it was going to go. And we had some pretty, like 2 or 3 different things that we set our foot down and said, you know what, we're going to make this a lifestyle, and it's not going to just be about the money. We're going to have flexibility so we can see our kids play sports and be involved in raising our kids. I wanted to be at the school for things. And, he was like, I want to do the best extension for our clients. And we also were like salespeople that had been in situations where we would get a deal and get it in the door, and then somebody else inside might not care as much, and it goes out the back door. So we were definitely adamant that that wasn't going to happen. And then we were adamant that we were going to take amazing care of our team, because obviously we come from environments where like, that's not always corporate America's most number one priority in a lot of ways. So we really wanted to make sure that our team was appreciated, had processes that made sense, that things were simplified, and that the goals were clear. Come to work hard, have fun, and take care of our clients.
Well, and then part 2 to that, which is kind of important, we were able to start up a company when most people would never have given us space, but everybody was hurting so bad at that time. We could get in and sublease to be able to start. If we tried to do that in a different market, it would not be feasible.
Right. And
so to some degree, it was an opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're actually in a moment like that again right now. It's kind of come full circle for us. The transportation, supply chain industry, I don't know if you've, seen things on the news, et cetera, but we're kind of going through it right now.
Yeah, a little bit.
we've got some things that are getting worked out a bit. But with the tariffs, and then kind of now you see a lot on the news about the carriers, the drivers, it's all around a hot mess. And we've had probably the most down year we've had since we've started. And we're just kind of right back. There's a lot of it that feels familiar to us. Like, we were born in a recession, and we were born in a downtime. And so right now our main hunt is like to find all those opportunities that we knew were there 16 years ago, because what great companies are going under right now because they were mishandled financially. And so there's some great people out there. There's some great clients looking for great services. And so that's kind of where, this feels a little bit like eerily like, we've been here. We know what to do. Only now we have this amazing team of like 25 other people. And, still some savings left.
Sure. So like, in those first days, you already sort of talked about it a little bit, but like, what do you remember were like the major hurdles that you encountered? You talked about the opportunities you found, but what were like the real big challenges?
For me, it was, I would have to say financial, because we did it ourselves. And that's something that we didn't have investors. We didn't have anything to fall back on. There was a no-fail mentality, because again, we can say, if we did, we'd fall in line with everybody else, but that was not our mentality. Our mentality is we're going to power through this. So absolutely financially was our biggest worry in the beginning. Kim and I used to walk out to the mailbox every day together, just hoping that check came from that client, that they trusted in us to give us an opportunity of maybe when we shouldn't have had one yet with them. And then to make sure they were paying us on time. That was that was something that, between those two things were huge.
Yeah, and I agree 100, the financial side for sure, but that played out a little different for me because I was the one paying all the bills, collecting the money. Every single day was in my face. I didn't, there was a couple things that, Todd was steadfast. He was the one that would be like, failure's not an option. And I was the one looking at all the moving parts. And I'm like, okay. So my biggest struggle was the faith, just believing that it would all come together. It was like, I knew in all my heart I wanted it to. I knew in all of our capabilities that we were capable of it. But when it came to just that fundamental aspect of it and looking at things, it was like, I don't know, miracles that had to come to place to, make things happen, I guess. And it was, so I mean, Todd would say to me, failure's not an option. I'm like, okay, well, I'll keep going, but I didn't feel it as much as he did a lot of the time. So that was hard. So we took turns picking each other up.
Yeah. At what point do you think maybe that started to change? Like, when did you start getting a sense that you were really building something special in the 3PL space and doing something kind of unique?
I think Kim and I would probably have different answers on this, but my first one was we got a kind of a large distribution rollout that was 50 plus truckloads from a fairly high profile client that a lot of people want to get in the door with, and we are at that point really having no business to get that to get warranted that trust, and it happened and we did it, and that client is still with us today. I mean, so we're 14, 15 years with them, and we've just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And, we are their primary domestic supplier now. I remember the first time meeting them is, he had his routing guide up on the board and showing, who they use for all of their vendors. And I went in and said, I want to replace them. And it was, that happened, it really happened. It took time, but that's where I went, we can do this, and we really can do it.
Yeah. And I think for me, the timing was a little different because, I mean, obviously we're on opposite sides of the company. He handles the operations and the day-to-day, the core, and I handle the marketing, accounting, HR. And I think for me, it took a little longer. Kind of going back to it, I mentioned like the financial aspect of it. That's a lot of deep wiring that's taking place all those years. And I remember having a really hard time changing the view of the company, right? Going from like working in it day to day and getting to that point, and then right as we were about to start to feel a little comfortable, COVID came. And so then that whipped us the other way. We doubled our company size. Now we had all of these resources, all this rapid hiring, all of this, so on and so forth. And I think that during that time, simultaneously, we had signed a 10-year lease. We hired a sales rep, a very seasoned sales rep in the industry, and he started on February 4th, and everything shut down on March 13th. And so that was an interesting, surreal time for us, but probably most the time that I started feeling like we knew what we were doing, right? Like, because there was this moment where I was like, oh my God, like, we're doing it. Like, we're not, this is the emergency. Like, this is, whatever, we're surviving and we're figuring it out. And we have a great team. And, I'm a little bit more in this industry. Like, I guess I am a little bit more about the ambiance and the feel. And so having a really beautiful office matters to me, having a wonderful workspace where our team can come and like feel excited and creative. And it's a demanding job. And so for me, it's super important that the area feels recharging and that they can still do hard things, but feel good still at the end of the day. And so when we started, Bob loves to do tours of our office. So that made my aesthetic self feel like we finally made it. Because people always like, I'm like, yes, we did it. What'd they say about the office? That's always my first question.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think this is reflective of, we're going to get into it a lot more, but you're focused just on humans and people and their experience. I don't want to get into that yet. We'll get into that later. But yeah, I think your office certainly reflects that. When you walk in, it very much feels inviting. It's a really cool space. So yeah, I think, yeah, so good work. So CTE, we didn't address this earlier. CTE in your name stands for Commitment to Excellence. Could you maybe talk about how that principle shapes your business and maybe how you make decisions, how your operations work, and just obviously into your culture?
Yeah, I wish, we created this before the NFL started.
Yeah. I thought about that with your partnership with the Seahawks when it first came out. I was like, that's so funny.
They can't use some of it because,
Yeah.
But going back to what Kim was saying is we were in sales, and when you work so hard to bring a new client on board and then they wind up going out the back door, that was something neither one of us ever liked to deal with. And quite frankly, nobody likes to deal with that.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we went into, through some things that we've learned over the years, we learned that we were a client-eccentric company. And by doing that, we weren't going heavy into sales and just trying to grow. It was a true client approach, which, came with the commitment to excellence, handling it the right way, making the right decisions for them, servicing it the way that they need to be done. And through our time and really Kim's vision on that is, we had the idea early on, but it took us a few years to really define it. And Kim, could speak kind of where that manifested into and really developed.
Yeah, and that's a great, excellence is what we strive for. It's not perfection. It's not, it's not mediocrity for sure. But what we've kind of come to in our growth was learning, again, we're corporate expats, right? The most crazy word you can say to us that makes us cringe is KPIs or structure or processes. And we're like, oh, we just kind of turned our nose up to a lot of that stuff. In the beginning, we were super, people oriented from the beginning, and we picked a lot of great humans that came together that all had the same attitude. We didn't have to write rules about how to be excellent, right? Everyone wanted to be excellent. And not that gets harder to find, but as you get bigger and things get more complicated, and as every business owner knows, there comes a time where some people are going to sit you down in a room and say, but how? But how do you make this happen? And Aaron, you may have been a part of that conversation at one point.
Yep.
And we're like, what do you mean how? We just do. It's what we do. I don't understand how you're not understanding. And that was a catalyst for us to really, anytime you're kind of pushed to the point where you're like, God, that's annoying. It's kind of a cue for Todd and I that we need to look a little deeper and find out what's making this emotional response to that, right? And we get it, and it's fascinating because we're actually in it even deeper right now. So once you start that process and you put processes in place, and you put processes in place when things are going great, and then you're like, yeah, we did it. So we wrote some rules down, we put some things together, and we're still doing awesome. And then adversity comes to your door again, and then tests these new processes. And I think that's what we're in right now. And that's what, again, Todd and I have a really hard time looking at anything as a crisis. It's like, oh, okay, well, another challenge on the horizon. So as we've kind of gone through these challenges right now, we're finding that our processes need to be fine-tuned even more. So, and now we're just kind of in that mindset that it's always just about, okay, well, if that's happening, how are we responsible? What can we do to make that clear? How do we clarify? How do we make that, more scalable, more repetitious? So it's kind of fun and exciting now that we're in it, and to keep that excellence standards, not only externally, because our clients always love what we do, but sometimes internally. And, keeping the culture exciting and having growth. We applied for the best places to work, and we haven't won yet, and we've gotten some really good feedback from it. And we're using that also to fine tune some of our internal processes as far as making sure our culture is, a place that people are growing always and learning. And so it's fun. It's kind of exciting to figure all that out, but excellence is definitely a high standard to set.
It is, but I think you're right. I mean, the truth is everybody to some degree wants to be excellent. I think as long as you can keep prioritizing those people because that's what makes your people happy too. I know for me, when I do great work and I'm proud of my work, it makes me more excited to come to work, but it also helps me better serve our clients that way. Right. So it's full circle. I mean, setting the standard of giving people excellence, like you said, you don't want people revolving door coming in and leaving. It's hard to leave when you're getting excellent service, right? So,
right, yes.
It makes a lot of sense. So what are the biggest challenges you're seeing in your industry today? Not just within your company and with your culture, but like just in the industry as a whole, what are you seeing?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yes,
That's
it
a whole
is.
separate podcast.
It is.
You know, you know, this is one that I think we've definitely thought about on many different levels. And I think the biggest hurdle is actually blocking out the noise. You,
Mm,
when we started this company, we blocked out the noise when we were, talking a little bit ago, talking about starting up in a recession. There's all the reasons in the world why not to do it, but what's the
yeah.
reason to do it? And that's similarly where we are right now is there's double brokering, there's rampant fraud, there's tariffs that are slowing things down, there's the
Mhm.
economy, they're saying, so if you listen to all the stuff that are the major challenges on what we do, there's all kinds of reasons to have a negative attitude about it. But yet, if you block it out and you do what is right, you can overcome that. And, for us, like even on transportation, when the industry's saying it's all down, we've had 4 consecutive months of growth. So
Mhm.
we're obviously doing something right, navigating those challenges.
No, I agree. I mean, and that's the biggest thing. Like, we just don't have time for the nonsense. You know what I mean? We have to stay aware of the cliff notes, and we get that things are not in a great situation. But again, like, I think we're wired. I think we're actually better wired for challenging situations than we
Mhm.
are optimal. We got a little bored during, the successful years.
Yeah.
you know so I think that it's definitely just focusing on ourselves, right? Like, if we don't have our shit together, it doesn't matter what's happening outside. And that's true whether it's, if it's factors that are making your business double in size or factors that are making you lose all that money you just doubled. Like, it
Yeah.
still depends on showing up every day and being your best self and providing the best environment for your team and the best service for your clients. So yes, and like I said, that's a whole other, we could talk for an whole hour about all the
Sure.
challenges, but
Yeah, I think you brought up earlier the pandemic, and you said how that was so instrumental. I just think that's probably when most people, I think, became so aware of the industry. Really, I think it mattered more to the everyday consumer, and they understood how things arrived at their door a
for
lot more
sure.
during that time when those challenges arose. So I think it's that
Well,
way again. I think there's just a lot more eyes on your industry, and we're all much more aware of what those challenges are.
and
Um,
interesting enough, like the thing that we've kind of been using as the analogy, like COVID was a very different experience for our team
mhm.
because a lot of companies suffered and that was horrible to watch. But we suffered in a different way, which was excessive growth, and we had to scramble and figure things out more
Right.
quickly. So luckily we survived financially and we survived. But now, yes, we're on the other end of it, right? So sometimes when we get into a situation, I'll have to remind Todd, I'm like, we are the restaurants of COVID right now. Like, we're the ones
Right.
that are having to pivot. So, no, we don't want our outdoor dining to be a plastic encased PVC piping structure, but that's what we're doing. Because
Yeah.
there's just things that we just have to survive right now, and in one piece so that we can get to the other side of this. Because I do think a lot of the changes that are being made and a lot of the issues are being addressed in our industry right now. So it's just a hot minute until things get hopefully safer and more efficient for everybody.
Yeah, the show, I mean, certainly in your industry, maybe more than any right now. I mean, the show must go on, right? It has to happen. So you just have to find a way to keep trucking along. Speaking of which, so a lot of businesses are automating, they're using AI and using all this automation, sort of taking people out of the equation. But you're still prioritizing people and humanity as such a tenet of like how you guys do business. Can you talk about maybe why that's so important in your industry, but in any industry really?
Well, from my perspective, AI definitely has a place in what
Hmm.
we do, and using it in the right way to maybe help logistically,
Hmm.
and speed up response in certain areas can be a wonderful tool. That said,
Yeah.
humans are the most important piece because it doesn't consider how is that client or prospect feeling? Are you gathering all the information? Is the outcome you you've got to make sure you're understanding what the outcome is that is required and doing it. AI doesn't have that capability, and many companies do it that way, and they just do it. But we believe by humans asking the questions, building relationships with the people we deal with are really what ultimately sets you apart. And we firmly believe that.
We do, for sure. And I think we're in an interesting timeline, in technology's birth and growth, because we're Gen Xers, and I was a senior in college when the World Wide Web, I still have the packet introducing the World Wide Web. And so I think
we're dating ourselves a little bit.
I think that's fine, but I think we're the same people left on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, we remember life without technology. And I think that, humanity is always striving to be more efficient and to get more done. But it's like, there's only a few of us out there that still stop and say, hey, you know what is it still enjoyable, right? Like, let's not just always rush to the most efficient thing. Let's not always, and one of the things we have around here with our culture and our lifestyles, like we're in a fast moving industry, right? We're in a stressful industry. And we also, we're attracted to people on our team that have family and have a life, right? And we don't want this to be their life. We want this to be the part that catalysts their life the way they want to live, with their families and their friends and their hobbies and doing the things that us humans are here to do and experience. And so in order for us to do that, we have to keep things efficient, and we just don't do things that are irrelevant around here. Like, I'm not going to do something just because that's the next best thing to do, right? And there's a lot of things that we choose to do differently than others in the industry, or even all the way around the board. But I guess the idea is that, yes, AI has a place, and we've actually, transportation industry was probably one of the first adapters of AI as far as being able to try and track roads, lanes, and pricing and all of that with the freight industry. So, I mean, does it have a point where it exceeds its own abilities to be useful? Yes, I think so. So again, like Todd said, there's always that human piece of it that's like, and again, I'm kind of obsessed with the topic. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and I think it's going to come down to that self-fulfilling prophecy at some point. Like, do we want to just keep doing this just to see what we can break and what we can do? Or do we want to be like, yeah, that's working, we're good. There's some camps that are like, yeah, it's going to wipe out all human jobs and we don't even need humans. Okay. And then there's people who are like, it can enhance our jobs, we still need our humans. So it'll be interesting. And let's see where it ends up compared to every new breaking technology, right? Like,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And do we use it to enhance it? What was it? Was it the fax machine or email that was supposed to reduce our work hours by like 6 to 12 hours a week, and we were supposed to have more time home with our families? Same idea. Are we going to do the same thing? Are we going to just then expect more, or are we going to truly let it?
Well, I think that was the BlackBerry. I think that's what it was initially, the BlackBerry that we were supposed to. That was the big thing, is how much it would save time. Well, all it did is make you more available.
Yeah, all laptop, all of it, all technology ever said.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna make your life so much better, but does it?
Yeah, right. Instead, it just makes it more present. It's just always with you. You can't leave it at work anymore. I think it reminds me of this quote. I don't know if you guys ever watched The Office, the NBC, the old comedy show. There's an episode of that where the boss is arguing with Ryan, one of the characters. And I always think about this when I think about you guys. And they're telling him how he's going to go out of business one day. He's in a failing industry, whatever the deal is. And he says, yeah, but the reason I've succeeded is because I know people. People will never go out of business. And I just think that's such an interesting way of looking at it. At the end of the day, you're always serving people. I mean, like what you guys are doing, the supply chain, it's going because people need these goods on the other end, whatever it is. And so you got to keep the human element. AI can help you do that. Maybe it'll streamline some things one day, but being able to relate and to keep those relationships, it takes human to human connection to do that, Well,
I think that's such a good point, Aaron. And I think, kind of going back to the question you had about the challenges in our industry, and it's been a down year for us. We've gone 14 consecutive months of losing money. And that didn't even happen when we started up, right? And And I just think that we've definitely had conversations. One that helps us keep our attitude is when it was just the two of us and we bootstrapped the business, it was just the two of us. Now we have 25 people and a management team of 12 outstanding, minds working to pull this thing together. And so without them, we wouldn't be able to do this, right? And of course, we've had many conversations about like, is this the industry we could do it? We can start another business, and you can take this entire team, like you said, it's all about serving a client, filling a need, and taking care of your team. We could, you can interchange what you're doing in a lot of ways as long as you have the people. I think so. We'll see.
Yeah.
We shall see.
How do you guys work to, like, what are you doing in the culture side? This is really, I guess, your expertise according to your title, Kim. How do you guys do on the culture side to preserve that human touch with your team and with those people? Like, how do you guys stay so connected and so good to one another, I guess?
Right. And I think that's a great question, and on so many levels. It's, well, first of all, you have to be intentional about that, right? So you have to choose that matters to you. And then it's just like anything else. You have to adapt and adjust. We try to keep, like I said, the office lively and fun. And we're starting company. It started with the two of us and then JJ for a while. So there was three of us, and then there was four, and then there was seven, and then there was 14, and then there was 28, right? So you have that compounding factor. And we've tried really hard. Like, I think to me, bringing people around the table is important. I love that, dining, having my friends over and being with people. So we started that tradition when we were 7 people of bringing everyone around the table for team lunches and holidays, events, whatever. And we've just really tried to keep that going. So once a quarter, we bring the whole team together. We set the tables. It's tables now. We have 8 kids tables. But it's just important that we sit down and that we have those conversations with each other and we be with each other just outside of like always having those work connections. And then, some of the things that Todd and I started, like handwritten notes at Thanksgiving, we still write a handwritten note to every single team member and hand deliver that, just little touches like that, and of course that's gone from like this to, the things that really matter and that we really feel we're intentional about. And then over on the business structural side of things, I think that, like you said right now earlier, we're working on our processes to make sure that they're working for growth, and I think some of the resistance we had to processes might have been us getting in our own way if our culture was to be continually growing and people felt like they had a chance for upward mobility and to take on new responsibility and challenges. So those are the things that we're working on now for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes from job descriptions, our hiring process, and by that, like, what questions are we asking? How do we ensure people fit in culturally and responsibility wise, and staying true to what got us here, but making sure we define it to move forward and to be clear and precise about it and consistent throughout all avenues.
For sure. And then, that stuff evolves, right? Like, I think the biggest thing we're learning now that we're in our 16th 17th coming up year, whatever, it's like, the parallel we have in our experience is that when we started this company, our kids were 1 and 4. So we always have this really unique visual right in front of us that they're now 21, almost 22. One's turning 18 next month. He graduates this June, so, and even in our roles as parents, like, we were the ones making all the decisions, doing all the things. Just the same as the beginning of the company. And then you get to this point where your kids are like, I can do this myself, right? And then, then they become teenagers and they already know everything. So the company's kind of followed along with the same line. So definitely evolving those processes as the company changes a little bit. And then it's definitely something that's always, and again, if we're intentional about it, right? We really want to make sure those things matter. So.
Yeah, defining it is super important. We found too, it's the reason why we go through a lot of those questions you talked about earlier about asking how do you do this and how do you do that, and then just defining who you guys are. I remember the process, one of the conversations we had that I loved was when we were saying, well, how do we just explain to people that we're like the grass-fed beef of the industry? Do you remember that? Like talking about how do we say how do you explain that we're different? We have to figure out, because we are different, and this is that way. And we one of the a partner was one of the ways we talked about. So we define you as not just a a broker, but a partner, like more than just a broker, but a partner. And I think that was how we tried to explain this human side and how you guys really are organic, right? It's the organic, true, better for you 3PL services. So what do you believe has been most critical for you guys' growth as a company over the last 17 years? So
I don't think there's a singular answer for that. On one side of it is financial responsibility. If we were trying to grow too fast or excessively going in one direction, I think there's things that will be negatively impacted. On the other side of it is absolutely following through on what you say you can do. Do it right, do it better each time, understand and ask the questions what they need, and truly service in that way. I think those both were equally as important, because if you're selling something that's going out the back door, you're not gaining anything. If you're not financially responsible, then you're making choices for the wrong reasons. And I think that between Kim and I, we definitely each had our place in those concepts. But I think one doesn't go without the other.
Yeah, and I think it's just that mindset of, that we established very early on, because we were scrappy and we were parent. We had everything. Like, we were $82,000 in debt on our credit cards. We had no 401ks. We had nothing. No safety nets, right? All we had was like sheer determination, the belief in ourselves, and then these little babies running around the whole entire time, So we were in survival mode for a lot of years. And I think once those pieces started coming together and we could catch a breath, that sort of never goes away, right? You don't really ever lose that paranoia. You don't really ever lose that, I'm not ever going back to this place again, right? And I think that combined with failure's not an option for us is what keeps us open to, like, how are we responsible in this situation? What is the common sense thing to do? Like, we're never going to be that company that goes out and takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to grow massively fast. We don't believe in that model, right? And so for us, we've had to kind of create, along with the fact of creating our own operational way that we want to do things, our grass-fed beef parallel, right? We also have done that internally, like in financial aspects of it. And there's a lot of people in business finance, they'll say to do one thing or do whatever. We don't do it like that, right? We might do it different. And I think, we carry zero debt with our company. We are our own bank. And so we have definitely set some parameters around who we are in that context, which helped us survive. Like when things were happening during the pandemic, the one thing I mean, this is from my sales days, right? This is not real. Like, I did not cold call this. I did not get out there and make this happen. This is happening to us. So we're just going to go ahead and take all of that, set that aside, because I have been in banking for a very long time and I've seen plenty of bottoms, right? So my feeling was like, we'll just wait and see what the bottom looks like, and we'll hold on to this till we get there. And I don't know, we're kind of in the bottom. It has a basement right now. Is that what we were talking about? So just having those kind of disciplined things, I think it's what's been critical.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, what does the future look like? I know things are crazy right now, as you're describing. What in your mind? What are your plans? You said you're putting together some processes and doing things. What are the plans, and what are your goals for the CTE and for your future, for your team, for your people, and your clients ultimately?
That's a great question. We're right in the middle. We're kind of in like I guess I would say like a chrysalis kind of stage, where the butterfly is coming, but the caterpillar's liquefied. We're in the cocoon kind of, we're definitely putting on a lot of different hats. We're trying a lot of different things. We are in a highly adaptable state right now because of the challenges in our industry. So that's kind of given us a chance to really look at the processes, really look at our culture, really look at our business. And again, that kind of lines up with the other side of the timeline in our life, which is raising our children. Our children are kind of going out on their own, and we're coming into a stage where I have a lot more free time to be involved in the company, and it's not as much racing kids and running the company. So we're kind of excited to see what we can do without the old ball and chain, they're heading out. So
Yeah.
Well, and I look at it as, some people I like to follow, kind of industry people. And as we were going through this is where, like I go back to kind of blocking out some of the noise. Like somebody I kind of respect in this was like saying the people that get through this are the people that are going to thrive on the other side. And we've seen a lot of companies, I mean, especially on the trucking side, trucking companies go out of business. And that's for many factors, not any
Sure.
one thing. It's not economy based. There's lots of things with that. But I also believe that, and we put ourselves in a position to absolutely weather the downturn, but what you can do to be ready to come out of it is going back to what we said. All the processes, all the communication style, make sure we're consistent across the board. So if we want to scale, we can truly scale it in other locations. We have all the processes in place. We have all those things. So right now, our 5-year goal, if you think about it, is just continuing what we're doing. It's we don't have we want to be $100 million in 10 years, and none of that. That's not who we are. But we want to do it better each and every time. We want to continue consistent growth, and that is our goal. Where that takes us, that still remains to be seen. But we know that making sure inward we're doing it right, and so we can outwardly show that, communicate that, and deliver on it.
Very good. Cool. Well, that's the last of my questions, guys. I really appreciate you joining me out here. I think I just give a pitch to anyone else listening out there. If you want to learn more about CTE Logistics, they really are incredible, and they have a really, really beautiful website. You can learn more about them at ctelogistics.com.
We have a great design team.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Look forward to working with you guys more in the future, hopefully. It's always fun. Always fun.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.